"What's your theory about the bridge?" asked Garvey, swirling the last of the ale around the bottom of his mug. He was tempted to get a refill before leaving. After all, he wouldn't be coming back this way again. It was unlikely that he'd be a welcome return visitor to Garion's Folly. At first he thought the mayor wouldn't answer, but with little else to do except sulk in silence, he finally relented. "I think it was done as part of a wager that someone lost. There are other romantic stories about it being done for love, but I think they're nonsense. My grandpa told me a story once, but it sounded like fantasy to me." Garvey shrugged. "I'd still like to hear it," he said, moving towards the bar to get himself another drink. Phelan watched Garvey with a sour twist to his mouth as he navigated across the room, stepping over obstacles. Phelan waited until he'd refilled his mug and sat down again before speaking. "The bridge was part of an ancient doorway." Garvey raised an eyebrow. "A door to where?" Phelan shrugged. "My grandpa didn't know that part. He just said it led elsewhere. He believed a sorcerer built it, and that the other half of the bridge is on the other side of the doorway in some other place. I told you it was ridiculous." Garvey grunted noncommittally. He ran a hand through his beard as he pondered the mayor's words. He'd studied the bridge yesterday, noting the lack of decay and the way animals avoided getting too close. In other parts of the forest he could hear birdsong, but here they'd watched him in silence from the branches of surrounding trees as he'd paced around the ruin. It had more than a few things in common with the Red Tower. Phelan thought his grandfather's story was just idle fantasy, but to Garvey it seemed the most likely explanation. The two questions he kept coming back to were, who had built it, and where did it lead? For all of the Red Tower's accomplishments with magic in the last 2 centuries, Garvey sometimes felt as if he was a child trying to learn how to read and write. The Grey Councils of old, those who had built the tower itself, had known so much more. Some of their secrets had been written down and were locked up inside the tower library, but unraveling even one ancient and forgotten talent could take a lifetime of study. There simply weren't enough mages with sufficient skill. Today there were only a handful of magic users alive who could call themselves sorcerers, and he knew they were poor imitations of the originals. The bridge was yet another reminder of how much they still had to unravel, and yet events conspired to prevent them from gaining more knowledge. In other circumstances, a mage could spend their entire life in Garion's Folly, studying the bridge and trying to unlock its ancient secrets. There were times when such a quiet life was enormously appealing to him, but it was far too late for that. "If only you'd been more welcoming," muttered Garvey, gulping down his ale and savouring the rich smoky taste. "All of this unpleasantness could have been avoided." "You're a wanted murderer. I could not stand idly by." "Yes, you could. You could have said nothing. All I wanted to do was eat a meal in peace, and then I would have left. Was it worth it?" asked Garvey, gesturing at the room around him. "Did you think you were being brave? Or perhaps it was pride?" "You will be punished for your wicked deeds," said Phelan with the confidence of a true believer. "By whom?" asked Garvey, folding his arms and sitting back on his chair. "The gods, the Maker or the Holy Mother will strike you down." Garvey held his arms towards the ceiling. "I'm here," he shouted. "I'm ready for my divine punishment." Phelan was appalled. "You dare mock the gods?" "Strike me down!" shouted Garvey, rattling the rafters. Silence greeted him. He waited for divine retribution, but nothing happened. No bolt of lightning, no clutching pain in his chest, no everlasting fire hot enough to melt his bones like candle wax. After a while he lowered his arms. "I'm not worried about your gods. If they even exist, they just don't care about us anymore." The front